and I'm going to do just a very, very little talk about GUIs and how they're implemented now in Unity 5. And I think this may have even been a Unity 4 thing, but last year we did it completely different than the way that we're going to do it this year. So if you guys remember, maybe you do, maybe you don't, in our start, we had this little start page script that controlled like our button, and we had all these things for our button, right? Because we had to have this GUI style, which would allow us to change basically the way that we want the button to be, with like the font or the font size or the font style, and like when you hover over the button, you click on the button. So we can hit start, and we can kind of see that right here in the start page. Oh, and there's our music, right? You guys remember that? So now when we go to this button, right, it's sort of interactive. You can click on it, and that'll load into things. But if you guys remember how we created that, that was actually in our start page script, and we created it with, I should probably switch over this so you guys can see it. We created it by having this GUI button, right? That we hand scripted. We hand script all of our GUI elements, and it's and I was informed over this weekend that that's the old school way to do it, and there's a new school way to do it, which all the cool kids are doing, which apparently we should probably do. So, and it's a lot easier. It's way easier. I mean, granted, not that this is a very complicated script. However, it is only one button, so you're not doing a whole lot there. So one of the things that they showed me was actually setting up a UI canvas. So one of the cool things about Unity is you can do that just by going to Create UI and Canvas. Now this is going to create a canvas field that basically is going to be all of like our buttons or just any UI elements that we have. So then we can create, so in this canvas object, we right click on it, we want to go to Create UI, and we're going to make a button. This is going to be our new login button. And so you literally, it's simple as that. You just click button, right? And then we have it. And if you expand that button, you'll have a little text object. This will be the text that's actually inside this button. And see how it's right here. We can set it. We can say, I am a button. Oh, thank you. I'm still on monodevelop. Yeah, okay, so in Unity, a couple steps back here. So we created this canvas. I'll just do it again real quick. So you go to Create UI Canvas, and when you create a canvas, this event system is also going to get created. It's just this little object that allows you to actually have events with that canvas, like clicking on a button or things like that, right? So when you see that event system, don't worry, that's normal. It's supposed to be there. That's not something that was added that wasn't supposed to be. So inside of your canvas, if you right-click on it and you go to UI and you create a new button, we'll have just a basic button. It'll be called button by default. We can expand that button and go into its text object, and we can change this button to be whatever we want. Like, so that's why I am a button. And now we have this button that's a button. And the cool thing about this is it corresponds, the button, every button object in the Canvas UI has its own on-click, it's a button, it has its own script, and inside of it, it has an on-click that you can actually attach certain scripts and certain functions to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this main camera, since that has our start page script on it. I'm going to grab that main camera and I'm going to drag and drop it into here, and it's going to automatically know to look through the main camera for all of its accessible functions that it can find. So, for example, the start page script is in there because it's a part of the main camera. However, the start page doesn't actually have a function that loads in the actual scene level because that's being handled through the actual button click. So we're going to comment all this out for now. And we're going to add our own little function, and it has to be a public function if you're calling it through the buttons. So we're going to call it public start level. Oh, thank you. See, I'm so rusty at this. Okay, so back into monodevelop here. We're going to go in here and we're going to have a public void start level, right? And we're going to call this from the on-click button of our button object inside of our Canvas UI. So this is really easy because then we can just go application.loadLevel, and then whatever level name, it's called practice zone right now. And just like that. So instead of doing any of our own GUI and scripting it all out and going through all that hard work, we can just kind of skip that process and just go straight into just making a start level function that we can call from the on click. So now that we have that saved, we'll hop back into Unity. and click on the button object, and then down here in the onClick, where we have our main camera, it's going to find that start page class, and then we're going to have the start level function. So when we have something there, we can pass in, or if we have something, for example, if we wanted to give it more of a specific level name, we can go back into Mono and we can give this thing a parameter string. We'll call it level name, and then we can do application.loadLevel level name, and then we can pass this string in back inside Unity. We'll hop back in Unity, and now when we go down to our onClick function or our start page .load level, it'll ask us for a string. We'll have a little box down here to pass in a parameter. So you can pass in, I might be wrong here, but I think you can only pass in one parameter at a time, and you can't pass in anything crazy. It has to be like a string or a float or an int. Like you couldn't create your own random crazy class and then pass that in to that object. I don't think it would understand it. I might be wrong on that, so we can toy around with it. But it's right, so we want to load level practice zone. Now I believe you don't want to put this in quotes, even though it's a string and it should be like this. I think that Unity will automatically parse that for us and will throw us an error if we put little quotes there, because it's going to try and put those in itself. It knows this thing takes a string, so it knows that the passed value will be a string as well. I mean, even if I was to put in like 15, even if I was to write like 15 in here, it would parse that 15 and think it's a string, so it would just give it its string quotes. So with that being said, I say all this, and now it'll probably not work, because that's how the game works. So we're going to change this button name, right? So we go back to our text object, change the button name. We'll change this to practice zone, or just enter world. I can't type today at all. And then the cool thing with the buttons is that with these UI elements is that now we don't have to set everything with GUI styles and create our own GUI style and doing all this extra work. We can actually just say we want its normal color to be, we want it to be a red button, and we want its highlight to be green, right? And then its pressed color to be blue, and now it'll do all of these things corresponding. And you can do the same for the text, right? Well, just you can set its color. I'm sure there's probably some way we can set its color to change based off of our input. But now if we run the game, now here's the real question. Now we're going to run it and we're going to see if this actually enters our world. Alright, so it loaded. That's good. Alright, does everything it should do. We are getting an error thrown here. Tree could not be loaded because the prefab is missing. I'm not sure. I think that was probably something that happened when we updated the game over the summer. It didn't like it. So that's fine. I mean, I'm going to ignore that for now, but we're obviously going to have to fix that later. The game loads up. That's all we really need. Make sure we can still pick stuff up, which we can. Still gets put over on the little thing there. Alright, good to go. So that's like very basic idea of making a UI. And you're going to want to make a UI for every single level that we're going to be in. So for example, we want to go in our scenes and our practice zone. We'll save that since that works. And then we're going to probably want to create another canvas for this as well. This will be just like our character UI, right? It'll have anything we need to know about our character on it. So again, we go to create, button in the hierarchy, UI, canvas. And this is going to make this canvas that's, don't worry about where it's positioned and how it looks. This doesn't get rendered. This box won't get rendered in the game world, but it'll get rendered as the front position on our camera. So anything that's put in here, we'll see on our camera. So we can add to the canvas, like, we'll just add some text. We'll say, this is a text object. I keep trying to write my watch, gets stuck on my laptop, and it's throwing me way off. Alright, and then we'll see it was written there, right? It'll be really hard to see because it doesn't have a background, but that's okay. And then if we wanted to add in some pictures or anything cool like that, we could just go to UI, raw image, and then we can just drop PNGs right here for textures. So I mean, we don't really have anything that we could, I mean, we could drop in anything, it doesn't really matter. But it doesn't matter, yeah, like I said, it could be anything. It could just has to be a PNG, and just this raw image now. Now we know that this will be on our UI. So now when we start this level, we'll have text object up top and this little weird thing over here on the side. So you may have noticed that I put this at the top of the screen, but yet when we play it, it's kind of in the middle, kind of to the side, and this is not in the top right corner as it should be. That's because when you're doing things with the Canvas system, you have to set its anchor. So this text, if we want it on the top, we go up here to its anchor, and we're going to set its top to hold down Shift, and you'll get a little dot telling you where things are going to be located. So if we click this on the top, right, we know its anchor is going to be on the top. So it's always going to be, that's where it's going to want to go to by natural. And then we go to our image, our little random image, right, we're going to set this to the top right, because again, we want it to be anchored in the top right. Now if we hit play, they should be in their correct positions. And just like that, right, they're where they should be. So that's a very, very brief, quick overview on how we're going to be implementing our UI for this year. I mean, it's a little simpler than having to code it all out. It gives you a little more flexibility, and especially if you want to just adjust things really easily, you can go in and you can just pause the game and we can say, hey, you know, I really want this to be a little bit lower, but I'm not exactly sure how low I want it to be. Pull your game out here on the side. Oh, we're going to have to restart it. That's okay. Or just unpause it, I guess. So now we have it here. Now we can go into this canvas object. In our scene view, I don't know if you guys can see the scene kind of on top, but now I can actually move this around and I can be a little more exact with how I want to put it. I'm like, oh, I just want it down just a tiny bit more. I can move it down just a tiny bit. But remember, with Unity, anything you change in the scene while the scene is running is going to get reverted. So if you get that perfect spot that you want, make sure that you go up here to this little cogwheel, copy the component, and now we'll close it out. Now it's back to where it is. Then you can click on this and you can paste component as values, and it'll bring it down to where it was previously. So that's a little trick if you want to edit things at runtime, but you know that as soon as you get out of runtime, it's going to reset. You can just do it like that, and it'll put back in the position you want it to be in. All right, so now let's move on. That's, like I said, so that's like a very, very brief, quick addition of the UI that we're going to use in this year. So play around with it. It's, like I said, it's super versatile and super easy to work with and pretty intuitive for the most part. Now 3D sound. Okay, so let's toy with this. This is gonna might take a little extra longer because I'm not 100% sure on how we're supposed to do this. So let's just create a box, right? We'll create a cube, and we'll put this cube up on top of the hill. And this cube is gonna be, we'll call it boombox, because it's gonna play our sound three-dimensionally. Make it a little bit longer. I mean, did you guys have any questions about the UI before I move on, I guess? Was it pretty self-explanatory? I know that you're probably sort of familiar with it because that's what we did during the game jam, right? And we kind of toyed around with it that way. Okay, well, if you guys don't have any questions, that's good. We'll move on. But if you do have any questions anytime, don't hesitate. Just to holler at me. Or if something doesn't seem like it's making sense or adding up, just holler. Okay, so we got this boombox. And what we're going to do, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to attach an audio source to it. Audio source. And inside this audio source, we can drag audio clips. So, in theory, the way I probably would want to do it is have a whole script that contains a whole bunch of different audio clips. And then we would be calling these audio clips to run dynamically for whatever it is, right? So if we run into something, we would play like that run into something sound, you know, and that would just do like a quick one shot of play that sound real quick, done and done. But since this is going to be 3D sound, we'll make it, we'll make it accordingly for that. Oh, I need to turn that particle system off now. This is going to drive me crazy. Okay, so we go back to our boombox. So you'll notice this giant sphere going around the outside of our boombox. This is how much, if you're outside of that sphere, you won't hear the sound. If you're inside that sphere, you'll hear it scaling from this inner circle, which this inner circle is its start point to its end points, right? So it's near and far. And you can adjust that here, min distance and max distance. So this is a little bit too big. This is not that powerful of a boombox. It doesn't have like super tricked out subwoofers or anything. So we'll just give it like, you know, maybe 50. Okay, that's a little too small. Maybe 100. And then we'll make the inner a little bit smaller. We'll just go to a solid and even 1 because we're never going to be inside of that boombox that close. And now the music that we'll be hearing will be dynamic, and it'll be scaling between that inner distance and that outer distance. So there's one other little thing that you have to make sure to do when you're setting 3D sound, and this is something that I had always overlooked in the past because I thought it was just this. I thought it was you just set your minimum distance and your maximum distance. However, the last step you actually have to do is this thing called the spatial blend. And once you see it, it's very obvious, but if you don't see it, it's not, right? So you got to set the spatial blend to 1, and that's going to change it from being a 2D sound, which means it's heard everywhere from everything, to a 3D sound, which means it's just heard within its actual minimum to maximum distance. So I mean, we can test that right now by logging out, playing it. Nope, we still don't hear it. Oh, because we don't have an actual clip inside of it, of course. So we gotta actually put the audio clip in there, and we're gonna loop it and play it on awake. I hope it works. Okay, so you guys can hear that? So it's actually playing, right? We know the sound's being played from everywhere. No matter where we go, I can run over here and I can jump off into the water and I can go try and swim away. The sound's still persistent, which is good though for like a game. We want background noise, right? So we always want to have some form of 2D sound, which is good for what this is doing, right? We want that. We would want the game music to always be playing. However, for this exact demonstration, we don't want that because we want legit 3D sound. So if I move this up to 3D, so it's a fully 3D sound, and then we play it, we shouldn't hear anything. Okay, good. And now let's run up to this hill over here. I'm going to make this a little faster. I think it would make it quieter, but I'm not sure. We'll test that next. So I'm going to make this a little faster running there. Oh man, this is harder than I thought because of the fog. No, it's still not there yet? Okay. Oh, I might have put it on the other hill. Oh shoot, this is going to be a little bit longer of a run than I thought. We'll hear it though in a second. We'll get there. I hope. Okay, maybe we don't hear it. Oh yeah, we do. It's super quiet. Can you guys hear it? You guys probably can't. I can hear it because I'm sitting next to the speaker. But that's okay. So we can just turn up its volume. It looks like its volume is extra low for whatever reason.
Just the way it scales, it drops down really fast.
Oh yeah, you're right. I mean, if you look at it, you can see it cutting off.
So I think maybe this could be really big, like the outer part.
Yeah, and the inner part we can make a little bit bigger too. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize the object's so tiny. I thought that was a lot bigger than it was. Okay, first off, let's just scale this up then, and we'll scale. I guess that is kind of how big a boombox would be though, compared to a person. So maybe we should leave it about that size. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's all that matters. Alright, and then... Yeah, I think you're right. So we want it to be louder, and we want to move it to this hill over here. But it's nice if you have two screens, because then you can test. Because then it's really easy to test. One of the screens you have the game view, and the other screen, or the other screen you have the scene view. Then you can kind of see how close you are getting to things, and you can see it better in real time. So if any of you guys have two screens at home, it's a lot easier to test things that way. All right, let's just we'll make this a little bit bigger. What we could probably do is we can probably move these out, I would assume. So we can say, let's give it a little more sound. Maybe. I want to just do this, move it all as one.
That's like the graph of like how far away you are and how
Yeah. Yeah, but I actually kind of don't want to tweak this. I thought it was going to be, maybe I could do it individually, be a little easier. No, it's weird. I don't know why it cuts down like that, so I'm just going to kind of leave it. But it's real messy now, but that's okay. Hopefully it'll work. We run up to that hill. Okay, I'm moving this thing closer. It's way too far away still. We'll put it on top of the house. Hut, house, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, we can put it inside. Because sound plays through walls. That's a thing. That's a thing in this. I found out a cool little keybind is you can hold right click. I didn't know this either, so this is a nice little tip. You can hold right click, and then you can WASD to kind of move around in the world space, like so, which is kind of cool. Oh, then it looks like Q and E can raise and lower you. E to raise, Q to lower. Then you can kind of just go through the world like this. Might be a little easier for some of you guys to maneuver through it like that. Okay, anyways, alright, so this is good. We only have to walk a little bit now. No sound? Good. And as we get closer, we should start hearing the sound. You guys hear it that time? Okay, so you know it exists. You know it's actually working. One thing we could probably do is also maybe bump up this minimum distance. Oh no, see now it's controlled by curve. Well, except we don't want the maximum distance. I understand what you're saying by making it bigger because that will allow us to hear it louder as we get closer. But we don't want to be hearing it though as when we start the game, right? So I think there's a fine line between here. I'm gonna try making the minimum a little bit bigger. This might be totally wrong. Oh, and I can't even set it. Here we go. Okay, well I can hear it outside of it now. But that's okay because it looks like it doesn't go to 0 in the end. I'm changing these values that I have no idea what they do. Okay, so even if I'm inside the minimum distance, it looks like we're still able to hear it. So I'm definitely within it. That's okay, right? I mean, so that's a very basic idea on how 3D sound works. I mean, you can set up the dynamic sounds that way, and that's kind of what we're gonna want to do for pretty much everything. You know, I mean, we're gonna want any creatures we see in the world are gonna have to have this dynamic sound. Anytime we have, for example, my level that I'm gonna have set up, it's gonna have that boulder that's gonna roll off the cliff. That's gonna want to be 3D sound because we're gonna want it to be dynamic. And for almost every type of sound you're gonna come across in this game, we're gonna want it to be dynamic. So keep remember that. Oh yeah, and let's do one last little thing. Let's test the spatial blend. So let's bring this down to like 0.5. And this just makes me think that as we get closer, it'll be louder, but we'll probably still always hear it, no matter how far away we are. So let's test this. Alright. As we get closer. Alright, you guys might not be able to hear it. It is getting a little bit louder, but it's not very noticeable. But we could probably turn this spatial blend to the majority of the way up here. I mean, if you look at this little curve here, I mean, you can kind of get an idea on what it's doing based off your distance. But right, if we bring it up to 0.9, we'll test this last thing, and this will be the last thing we test before we get out of here. So it's really quiet, but you can't hear it. Can you guys hear it? So something's going on with the sound though, to where when it lags, the music speeds up and slows down. So it gets a little bit louder. It's not very noticeable, even at a very high rate. Might have to go higher with it or something, but ideally that's how we're gonna be setting 3D sound. So that's the main difference between 2D and 3D sound, right? Is 3D sound you have these things you can choose. Oh, linear roll off. Maybe this will give us more. Maybe this will be better. We'll try this at 0.5. So I know I said that was the last thing. Oh god, it's just so slow. We need to up the speed. Yeah, so it's getting louder. You guys still got louder? It's kind of hard to tell, but it definitely is getting a little bit louder. So linear roll-off versus logarithmic roll-off versus custom roll-off. I mean, you can kind of see these graphs, and you can kind of see what's happening in there. And yeah, so I mean, like I said, this is going to be the main way we're going to be setting our sound. Majority of the time, it's going to be 3D sound, so don't worry too much about 2D stuff. Any questions? Any questions for anybody?
What is some stuff that we can work on?
Whatever you want. Honestly, ultimately, we need to start setting up tasks. We need to start setting up specific tasks that need to be implemented for the game itself. Models are going to be a big thing. I mean, if anyone wants to go ahead and start cranking out 3D models, that's going to be huge. We need to start programming some. We need to do some programming also, but I haven't done a single programming tutorial yet this quarter, so I'll probably hold off on assigning anyone anything to do until we get there. Yeah, the train editor, definitely. I mean, if you want to make trains, by all means, definitely make them. I think that since we have a couple people this year, or we have a couple people that, what am I trying to say? We have a couple people that aren't here this year that were here last year, so we're gonna have to cover for some of their stuff that they did. So we'll probably have to take over a couple of levels and start over from scratch. Maybe not start over from scratch, but you know, just fire up the Trello. Let's go in here real quick. We can talk about it. Talk about it real quick in our last minute that we have left. I know I have Trello Gold. Yeah. Cool. So we okay, so we have these island layouts, but we also should have. Okay. Are they? I tried to kind of organize this a little while ago, but I kind of didn't really take much time in doing it. So this is the general overview island layout, right? This is like we're going to have our main island, and then we have these little sub-islands that are all going to be their own little mini-tasks that you'll randomly get put on. So this is island 1 is the raft. And who's working on the raft? Raft island. Anyone? Anyone here? Okay. So that one's going to need to be revisited. We have the glider island. Who's working on that? That's you? Okay, great. So you're gonna keep cranking on the glider island. I mean, it's got some pretty specific things that are gonna be in here. But for example, you know, we're gonna need an airplane model. We're gonna need a house model. We're gonna need forest assets. Did you? Cool, man. Cool. Yeah. I mean, you gotta remember, it's gonna be a crashed airplane. It's gonna be like a 90% destroyed airplane. That's okay. I mean, yeah. So we'll have a crashed airplane. We have a grappling hook. Were you grappling hook? Okay, that's right. It's all coming back to me now. So, and that also has like. So if you guys are looking for specifically for meshes to make, go into the Trello, look at the actual level layouts, and the ones that have kind of a more dynamic map. That's what we're gonna need all of this stuff, right? Like a lookout tower. We're gonna need hooks and some type of grappling hook healing system. We definitely are gonna need a main character, which we sort of have here drawn out. This huge picture. But I mean, this is kind of like the basic model. I started modeling it, and then I never really did anything with it, though. Why not? So we were kind of thinking that our robot would be Mega Man-esque and have like certain attachments that he could put on his body to allow him to do different things. Like he could put on like a grappling hook attachment, and he could now have a grappling hook. He could put on these super shoes that would allow him to run over water, things like that. But let's go back real quick. We got the radio island. That was the island I was working on. Again, it's got like a bunch of stuff we're gonna need. We're gonna have a music shop. Again, the airplane. That's the airplane that we'll be reusing for everything. And just all of these little things here. And then finally we have the bridge island, which we could probably come back and revisit. I don't know if necessarily we still want to use the bridge. But let's say, so Island 5 and Island 1. Island 5 and Island 1 are going to be the two main islands we'll probably come back to, and maybe we can talk about this next week, about if we want to change the design and how we want to have these islands implemented. It'll be a really open discussion when we talk about it. But as far as goes for like what should we go start working on, really anything. I mean, the world's your oyster at this point. It took me a long time to see this, but I realized that last April you put up a bunch of like plants and stuff. Yeah, well, I mean, they look good, so that's great. I mean, those are exactly the kind of things we need, right? We need very ambient little pieces that we can just put into the world. Exactly, yeah. So we'll come back, we'll talk about the raft island and where we want to kind of do things, or if we still want to have a raft. We'll do this next day, and we'll do same with the bridge. We'll go back through the bridge, and we'll talk about that. And we're ultimately going to need to decide on how we're going to want our main level to be. I know we did some talks about having it be like being like a rundown camp sort of thing of Aboriginal-esque type people, cyborg things, that the whole world changes when you go down. So I thought that was a really good idea, and I would still like to kind of work towards it. But we should probably start working on getting a level drawn out, sort of like this, how we have the levels drawn out. We need to have something like that for both level 1, or both Island 1 and Island 5, as well as the main island. So those 3 islands are stuff that we could start working on. And if you guys want to if you're looking for something very specific to do over this weekend, maybe you got some time, then maybe start doing that. Maybe start kind of storyboarding out some ideas you would like to see for one of those other islands, and then come back on Monday. We'll still do Monday, but next week might be the last week that we have official Monday meetings. I'll still be here for the majority on Mondays. I'll just be hanging out. So if you guys want to come hang out, that's fine too. But there's a good chance we'll be switching our official meeting times to just Wednesdays. So just keep that in mind. Also, we're going to need to do restructuring of the actual officers in this club, right? Because as you can tell, we're missing a couple from last year. That's fine, right? I think there's some people who are pretty interested in that. So that's cool. We'll get to that when we get to it. Again, that's probably something we'll bring up next day. But so for this week, I guess that's that, and that's all. Any other questions from anybody? This Monday we'll have like an official meeting, but I think this will be our last time that I'll be saying that it's an official meeting. We probably won't live stream Mondays anymore. We probably won't archive. We'll probably just come here and kind of hang out and maybe like work on some stuff, and maybe if anything productive comes out, we'll just throw up on Trello versus having a full dedicated like live stream every Monday, because I'm sure there'll be a couple Mondays where we'll come up and we'll meet and we'll just want to like hang out or work on homework or stuff like that. It's going to be a very casual, non-really like learning focused day will be on Mondays. And which brings me again to the next point is Wednesday the 28th. That's in exactly 2 weeks from today. We will not have club because there will be a final taking place in this room. Yep, which the final is I'm in that final too, so I'm not going to be able to go meet in a different room. But if you guys want to meet in a different room, by all means, how about it? But that is that, and that for the week of October 14th.